So good evening and welcome, or good day, whatever time you are watching this on Catch Up. My name is Yvonne O'Garro, and I'm a restorative and hatha yoga teacher with MoreYoga. And I'm really pleased to be offering this session on the Connection Cafe, which is called Yoga Journeys. And Connection Cafe started, way back March 2020 during the lockdown for us to connect as everything was locked down. And then in the summer, with the killing of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter protest, MoreYoga wanted a platform or to create some space to amplify melanated voices. So they asked me to hold space, and this is what I came up with. So Yoga Journeys asks yoga teachers of color the same 10 questions, but naturally all the answers are beautifully different. And today I have the pleasure of inviting my friend and awesome yoga teacher, Dilhani Wijeyesekera. Welcome, Dilhani.
Thank you, Yvonne. It's really lovely to be here with you.
Woohoo! How are you today?
I'm good. I mean, it's like gorgeous outside. The sun is setting outside my bedroom window. So
Nice.
Life is good today.
Nice. That's great. It makes such a difference, doesn't it? Seeing the sunshine, just seeing the lighter days. It really is uplifting.
Oh my God, so much so. Especially after the year we've had, it feels like just unfolding, opening up.
I love the way you did that with your hands. It was like a lotus.
My flowers have come late this year in my garden, but this week and the last 2 weeks, they've just started to kind of, get that little burst of energy. So yeah, I just totally agree. I think we really need this.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so before we jump into the Yoga Journeys questions, I like to invite the yogi in the chair to introduce themselves as you would like to be introduced. If we met in a lift and you had to introduce yourself for 30 seconds, you know the lift intro? Yeah. Do your lift intro with how you introduce it, because you have more than one string to your bow. So
I have many.
Exactly. So this intro kind of gives everybody a flavor of all of you, not just the yoga string.
Yeah. So my name is Dil, or Dilhani, as people like to call me. I'm a South Londoner, born and bred, but via Sri Lanka. So seeds are from the Sri Lankan country of origin. So as Yvonne was saying, I am many things, but at my core, I guess the thing that I'm most passionate about is social justice. So I'm really driven by this belief that as human beings, we have the capacity to create the world that we want to see, and that's kind of my service. And so half my time is as an activist and working in social justice spaces with different communities in the UK and around the world. I sort of specialise in working with young people, women and girls, and a lot over the last few years around racial justice. I'm also a yoga practitioner, and over the last 2 years, I've really started to kind of integrate these two spaces. So I'm doing a lot of work around collective care now, and how we draw on the power of this practice to support us to do transformative work in the world. So that's what I'm doing for myself. And then I sort of realized very quickly, oh my God, this is how we help people to do more.
Absolutely. Thank you for your service and all that you do. Amazing. You ready to jump into the Yoga Journeys question?
I am. I'm a bit nervous, but anyway.
Hey, it's nothing to be nervous about. You know me. It's a chat.
I always feel nervous when I'm with you, Yvonne. You're like,
I'll get away with yourself. Once you get into it, you'll be chatting away and you'll forget the nerves. Okay. I have to admit, I was a little bit nervous on my own, but then you soon get into the flow, so don't worry. Okay. So you touched on it a little bit there, but now we're going to go in depth. Honoring our ancestors, please tell us your family lineage.
Wow. So I am 100% Sri Lankan by my lineage. So my mum and dad are both from Sri Lanka. They're coastal people. So they're from the south coast of Sri Lanka. Very beautiful, very tropical. So beautiful sandy beaches, palm trees, like whenever all my memories of going home to Sri Lanka, the first thing you do when you get off the plane is you go in search of what we call tambili, which is like the orange coconut that you can smash the top off and you
Mm.
that is like heaven.
Okay.
And then at the end, you scoop the fruit.
Yes, yes,
And
yes, yes.
we used to fight over the fruit, like the pulp.
So they're orange in Sri Lanka.
Well, they go brown. They go brown.
Okay.
They get really ripe, but when they're young,
Okay.
it's orange and it's without the kind of brown hairs on it. And then you chop the head off. And
in the Caribbean, they're green. So same thing. Yeah, chop the top, drink it, scoop the middle out. Yay. Okay.
So that's where I'm from. In terms of my parents, they're from they came from really different backgrounds. So my dad was from quite a well-to-do family. My granddad was a doctor, so quite well respected in his village, and my dad was actually a sporting hero. I don't really talk about that or about him very much because I lost him when I was quite young.
Oh, okay. How old were you?
Well, I wasn't that young. I was 18, but he was
still young. It's still young. It's still young.
Yeah, and I sort of I'm learning at the moment to remind myself of all the amazing things about him and not just the things not well. So he was he held the national record for the 100 meters and the 200 meters sprint.
Wow.
So he was really quite good at sport.
For Sri Lanka?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Did he compete internationally?
No, he was really young when he broke the record.
Oh, wow.
That says something about the state of like sports, but, but he was 16 when he broke the record.
Wow.
And then and he was also a cricketer, so he was really good at cricket. And
amazing.
He found it very difficult to I probably get this from him. He found it very difficult to decide what to prioritize. He ended up, at quite a young age in his early 20s, leaving Sri Lanka and then trying to come to Europe. And then when my grandmother eventually was like, it's time, she's from an Asian family, it's time to settle down and get serious. So he had to come home.
Right.
He was introduced to my mum. So they had a traditional arranged marriage. My mum was from quite a different kind of family. So not as well-to-do, but very loved and respected in the community. And when I just find her story really fascinating. So they got married 3 weeks later.
Wow, amazing.
Which is mad. To me, that is completely mad. And she left Sri Lanka permanently at that point. 3 weeks after they got married, they came to the UK by boat. 3 months. 3 months to come
on the water. Yeah.
I can't imagine it. I can't imagine journeys. I mean, people still do journeys like this now, but and in worse conditions. But I can't really imagine it. And that was it. And then they were here from the 60s, and they sort of made their way. And we've always sort of stayed. I think we've gone through the sort of ups and downs of feeling like you need to fit in. But we've stayed proudly Sri Lankan somehow, and very connected to our roots. So it's all quite, very connected. Food, music, everything gets discussed. So nothing gets swept under the carpet. So if you came round for dinner at our house, you'd probably be privy to conversations that you'd be like, I can't believe you're talking about this in front of me.
Love it.
But, so we have all the conversation with everyone.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. That's great. Thank you. So, do weave in anything that you want to, even though it's a yoga journey, but because you have so many strings to your bow, share whatever is relevant. So, where, when, and with whom was your first yoga class?
So it's a really interesting question. So, my first yoga class was when I was working and living in Kenya. So I was working in international development, and I was in a house share at the time. And I met this lovely girl who became a really firm friend of mine called Angie, and she just trained as a yoga teacher.
Okay.
And so she was like looking for people to just sort of get her teaching practice in. And so she sort of happened upon this house, and she was like, oh, if you guys, you've got a, you've got a big space outside, if you'd like a class, I'd love to give you one. And I absolutely loved it. It was the first time I'd really done it. I did that classic thing of being like, yeah, I've been to Pilates.
So it can't be much different.
I know what I'm doing. And
yeah,
then I was like, oh no, I don't know what I'm doing. I really don't know what I'm doing. But it was amazing. And she and I became really good friends, and we ended up practicing. I went to her class every week diligently, probably for about a year, and we practiced together loads as well. Like she
outside the classes.
Yeah, so she invited me into when she was doing her home practice, and that was quite powerful for me. That started me practicing on my own at home, even at the stage with like videos or books.
Great. Now, what year is this, Dill? What year is this first class?
That was like probably like 2005 or 6.
Okay.
Something like that. So
a good while ago.
More than 10 years. It's coming up to 15 years. And yeah, and then I really, like, after that, I found, a couple of really fantastic teachers, and I really struggled actually when I moved back to the UK. It took me ages to find teachers that I liked, because the teachers that I had first met were actually very embedded in yoga philosophy. So they taught with philosophy.
Amazing.
They taught with Sanskrit and with all of that there. And I sort of moved back to London, and then it was like, everyone had amazing yoga pants, and and one of my worst, I had the opposite end of the experience. I won't name the studio because it doesn't exist anymore, I don't think, but I went to one of those mass yoga classes, let's put it that way, where there's about 40 people in the room getting really sweaty. And I actually quite liked it, to be fair. I quite liked it. I was like, really flexible, can do this, that, and the other. I was very young as well. But I experienced the opposite end of yoga, where I witnessed people being judged for not being bendy. And very quickly I was like, this isn't the yoga that I want to be part of.
And that's not what you were doing in Kenya. That's not what the experience was, right?
Okay. No, it was quite intimate. It was quite an intimate experience.
Definitely.
Meeting, somebody who still teaches now, having the privilege of meeting somebody who became a lifelong friend.
And she's still teaching now?
Yeah.
She's still teaching now?
Yeah.
In Kenya? Is she still in Kenya?
No, she's in the US now with her little girl. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So how long were you living in Kenya before you came to the UK, when you discovered, because you were there for work, you said?
So I was in Kenya for about 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And then, I came back to the UK for like a very short time, for like a year, and then I went back to East Africa for another 5 years.
Oh, okay. So the next question is going to be quite interesting then. So at what point, when did you realize you wanted to teach yoga? So 2005, 2006 is the first class in Kenya. And you're diligently going. When did the yoga teacher training happen? When did you realize? Not where did you train, but just when did you realize you wanted to teach?
So I think when I was living in Tanzania, I was doing a lot of like home and self-practice, because I had found one really amazing teacher, and then I was traveling a lot, so I had to keep my practice up myself. And at that time I was sort of like, when you sort of practice a little bit with your friends, and then people were sort of saying, oh, you guide really nicely, like, do it. Like, so there was a bit of that. But it was actually when I kind of came to think about teaching, it was actually when I was at a really difficult point. So I had got really, like as many of us do, really engrossed in my professional career, which I was enjoying, and it was really amazing, but I didn't have boundaries. And I was letting myself work really hard, and to the extent that I pretty much almost burnt out.
Mm.
And that was a challenging, and I was really young when that happened. So, you know, that was a challenging thing for me. And and I went through probably like a year and a half of I went into a really dark place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So my energy was really low. I was exhausted. I like I had grew up with quite good routines. I grew up, you know, in an Ayurvedic culture without really knowing that I was in an Ayurvedic culture.
Right. Okay.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
we had ways of eating, things that we ate, things that we did at certain times, and so it was very
Mm.
like I was very regulated.
Mm.
About 30, and then I went through this sort of year and a half where I just was not regulating myself, and really sort of paid the paid the price of it. It was an important lesson, and at that time, you know, like some amazing things happened at that time. So I have an amazing partner who at that time married me when I was at my worst. Which
Wow.
is sort of like I always think about that. And I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe this was a, you know, I pretty much crashed. I crashed my nervous system. I like let's just put it
Wow.
like that. I was waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I was like, you know, I was a bit hyperactive. I
Mm.
went through periods of extreme weight gain, which was really hard for me because I've been quite slim, and so I went through a massive like whole body image anxiety thing. I went through all of it,
Mhm.
and sorry, I'm being really long-winded, but
No,
I
no,
feel
not at
like
all. This is your journey. You take as long as you want to take to answer the question. Please don't worry about timing. There's no limit.
yeah, and so yeah, I was in this really dark place, and we ended up moving back home. It was just naturally our time to come home, and I was sort of like a first initially I was just looking to deepen my practice. So I had this experience. I was just going to classes, and I was feeling like I wasn't finding this kind of connection that I was looking for with a teacher, where I felt like, you know, it was going quite deep. Uh,
Mm.
and and then I did meet this amazing teacher, and just that like from the moment I went to her classes, like it was like, you know,
Mm.
experience that you get where you feel like, you know, this is it, this is it.
Yes.
And she
Yeah.
would, you know, there was like oming, there was like mantra, like there were
Hmm.
all the stuff that people sometimes
Honoring the roots, giving
honoring the
you
root.
you know, explaining the posture, the roots of the posture. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah, and
hear
then all that
you.
was happening,
I
and then
hear
I loved
you.
it. I loved it, and she offered teacher training, and initially I was like, I just want to do this for myself. I just want to like really, you know, deepen my practice, understand it, and let's see what unfolds. And then really quickly, as I was going into quite an intensive program, as you do when you go into teacher training, I was starting to recognize this was actually putting me back into a space of regulation.
Mm.
And
Great.
then I was just like,
Amazing.
you know, and then this was this was a big deal for me, and I was like, you know, yoga is going to be my glue, and
Mm.
this is something that I want to teach and share if I can, and that's sort of really how it started.
Amazing. I
Yeah,
like that. Yoga became your glue.
yeah.
Amazing. So what year was that? Roughly. Don't worry if it's not exact.
So about 2016, I think
16.
2016,
Okay,
2016, December,
2016.
something
Okay.
like that. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And where was the training? So we're now moving on to the first teacher training. So who was the teacher? You can share the name if you're happy to. And
Yeah.
where was it?
So it was in London. It was Mahela Wall is her
Hmm.
name, and she's amazing. She's an amazing woman. Um,
Is she
and
still teaching now?
she is still teaching, and she does a lot of teacher training.
Amazing.
Um, and one of the reasons I went with her, so there, you know, I looked at a lot of programs. She was running an independent teacher training program, so it wasn't like, you know, um, a big, you know, a big industry program. But one of the
Mm.
things that I've met a few teachers. I had friends who were teaching, and a lot of the stuff that I was kind of getting is people kind of felt like they were being trained in large groups, and so you don't get a lot
Mm.
of like one-on-one time. You don't get a lot of like opportunity to teach. I had friends who kind of had gone through this and kind of come out the other side feeling like, I'm not ready to teach. I don't know how to run a classroom. And so I was like, okay, so I definitely want to find quite a practical program. And so Mahela's program was great in that sense. So, she ran it with really small groups of people, like 6 to 8 people.
Wow, really?
Which was really nice. Yeah.
Wow.
Really nice. She had classes in studio, so you could come in to observe her teaching, and she kind of encouraged that immediately, and she encouraged you quite quickly to. So she really, what I remember, like probably about a month into the training, so it ran over about six months, and I ended up extending it a bit and doing it over a longer period. I remember like one of the first things she does is she asks you to think about what kind of class you want to teach. And you sort of design your own class plan pretty much straight off the bat, and and then you sort of then you start to build up and look at the different poses and the different aspects. And just very randomly, and she did it in the nicest possible way, she was like, Dil, do you want to just like you do the entry to the class and then I'll take over. And and this is about a month, 2 months in. I can't remember exactly.
Okay.
It wasn't entirely flawed, but it was good. And so as soon as I did that, and then I was like, come into Shavasana and all this stuff. And then I was and then she just looked at me. She was like, "Go on, keep going."
So she led you into a false sense that you were just going to start, and then she just let you carry on.
Well, she said afterwards, she said, I was going to come in, but you were doing so well. I just wanted to continue. And
credit to you.
Well, no, I think it's actually a credit to her teaching style. It's very intuitive and very and so, I had a very positive first teacher training.
Yeah, sounds it.
That gave great. I would say it gave me the basics of being confident as a teacher. So that was really powerful. And then my subsequent trainings have sort of built on that.
Okay.
So yeah, I had a positive.
Amazing. So this 6 to 8 people in your first training, how many people of colour on the 6? Just like 6 or 8 of you were many of colour?
I was thinking about this. I can't exactly remember, but basically there were 2 other people of colour.
Okay.
And I was like, so Cindy and this other lady, and it might have been because she had two groups on different days going through the program. But and I was thinking about why that was, because none of the other trainings that I've been on until I went on a session with Layla last year had people of colour on it. So I spent most of my time in very white spaces, very white female spaces, and I suspect it was couple of things. One, she was teaching from an area of London that's not like, is already quite diverse, so that's right. She just made her program really affordable. Like she had so many options to make it possible for people to do this. And that's why she attracted a lot of diversity in her, and not just in terms of people of colour, but lots of different kinds of people.
Excellent.
So
great.
I think there's something we can all learn from that.
Absolutely. Okay, so thank you so much. Now we're moving into the highs and the lows of the wellness industry. Yes, go ahead, take a sip of water. And I always ask you to think about, if there are any, the lows first, and then we end on a high, if there are any highs. So it's really over to you if there are highs and lows that you want to share with the wellness industry in mind.
Okay. So, I mean, I think some of the lows for me, there's a massive piece around how we welcome people into yoga and who we're welcoming into yoga. So we all know, when you look at particular studios, I'm not even just talking about studios, but like fitness, wellness spaces, a lot of them feel like they're geared towards young white women. I'm going to name that. I presume from a marketing point of view, that is a major consumer at this point in time. But I think there are many other people that need and want to be able to access wellness.
Well-being, absolutely.
And well-being, me being one of them, and many other people that I know. I found it really hard as a teacher to often be in spaces where I'm the only person of color. I still occasionally teach with a couple of studios where that is the case, you know, and I have talked to them about it, and you know, I just think we're at a point where this isn't something we can sweep under the carpet anymore, and we can't.
No, definitely not.
They're
definitely
not out.
not.
I've certainly had, so I don't live in London anymore. I now live in Bristol, and I've come across teachers and studios where, you know, it's like, well, there aren't any black teachers or there aren't any black people in Bristol, and that's just like not true.
Such a cop out, yeah, exactly.
That is systemic racism. If you didn't know, that is racism. So for me, that's one of the biggest challenges. The other is affordability. You know, wellness has become a premium. It's something for the middle class. It's something, you know, even I struggle to afford a membership of something. I would love to have my own membership. I get because I teach in spaces, I get to enjoy those spaces. But if I wasn't teaching there, I wouldn't get that privilege. I wouldn't be able to afford to go. So, you know, for me, there's a massive issue in terms of affordability. So those are, for me, those are some of the lows. And then the last bit for me is around that kind of positive body image. I mean, I've been at every end of the spectrum in terms of, like, you know, being thin, being overweight, being flexible, being really tight in the body. And I sometimes feel like when we enter some of these spaces, we're not necessarily judged, but sometimes we're pitied or infantilized if we're new. Yeah, we're othered. And I'm not even talking about people of color. I was talking to a good colleague and friend of mine who has a disability, and you know, was trying to get into a space where they'd be told they would be able to, but then the lift was out of action, and then they couldn't get into it, and then, you know, and they were offered the option of being carried into the space.
God.
And it's just like, well, that's not dignified. That's not
exactly
that's a human right being ignored. So for me, it's like, you know,
fix the lift.
Lift, and tell them in advance if they
exactly
if they can't participate. There's a lot of things that we need to kind of do better on, and I include myself in that as well. So those would be some of the lows, I think.
When you say, out of interest, when you say include yourself, we can do better on, what do you mean in particular about you?
Oh, I think, you know, we're all on a bit of a learning journey in different ways. So I want to recognize, I'm like, you know, I'm a person of color, but I'm, you know, I'm now a well-resourced individual. I'm a cisgendered, able-bodied woman. And so I have some privilege in the world. I get to come into spaces. I don't have to feel like I'm excluded, and it'd be very easy for me to forget that there are other people that are more likely to have their voices erased in a conversation.
Right.
If they don't have some of the things that, you know, that I might even take for granted sometimes.
Yeah. I hear you. So those are your lows. Do you have any highs?
I have so many highs. I mean,
hey, great. Share.
I've met some amazing friends. And,
yes.
You know, connections through the wellbeing space. I've been after in that space as well. I feel like I have been cared for by some of the amazing people that I've met there. So it's a mixed journey. So, you know, I definitely love that. I love going in, you know, this is more as a teacher, but how much fun is it going into a studio and playing with all the equipment? I love when we were allowed to do real physical classes.
Yes, yes.
And I used to love coming probably a bit earlier than I needed to, but
Yeah, definitely.
early, and setting up the room,
Yes.
doing that and putting all the things out.
Yes.
Just having a bit of a play, and then you're like playing in the studio, and they like have this massive space that you get to roll around in and do stretching
the rope wall. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely a high. Like I definitely love all that. You know, and for me it's also you know, the well-being industry, it has so much potential to be a platform to support people, and I love it when I do meet people who are doing good work from their studios or from their businesses. So and I have met people that are, you know, are doing serious stuff. So you know, there are some highs out there, and we can kind of learn from them.
Yeah, great, definitely. Do you have one ask of the wellness industry?
Yeah, you need to. There's two. Okay, there's a couple of things, and
Go
one of
for
them
it. Go for it.
Yeah. So one, you've got to diversify. So we need greater diversity in the types of people that are leading classes, that are facilitating in these spaces. Because until that happens, you won't see diversity coming through the door, because people won't feel like they see, you know, somebody who might mirror who they are or their interests. So that's one. And then the other one is like, it's about pay. You know, this is a $1 billion industry, and yet I meet teachers sometimes who are being paid £20 for their time. And you know, we need to value. You have to kind of do at a minimum of 200 hours of training, hopefully with a good institute. You have to keep up your own practice.
That's right.
Same for any instructor will need to train. You take good teachers will take great care in planning their classes, in thinking about their students. They're building your brand and your business, and
absolutely.
And I guess you know, one other thing, and I've seen it come up. Studios as well need to make sure that they are respecting like the living wage at minimum, especially when they're talking about their office management staff. I you know, I have reservations about the karma yogi concept, because sometimes I feel like it's free labor.
Okay.
So I'll leave that there.
Okay.
But I think, you know, when you
only if you want to, it's your conversation.
No, I won't leave it there. I'm about to continue. I'm saying I'll leave it there, but I'm actually continuing anyway. So
get it off your chest.
Is like, if you're gonna, you know, if somebody's gonna volunteer with you, volunteering is a powerful and important thing. But you need to look at the location of who that person is and where they are. So are you asking somebody who is not resourced, who doesn't have a lot of power, who maybe is starting out to you know, to be in that space, and if that is the case, if that's true, then you probably need to think more ethically about how you resource people properly for their labor and their contribution. Because I do think, you know, it's difficult. You know, small independent studios is a more challenging thing, but I'm talking more about, when I say industry, I'm thinking about some of the bigger brands out there that, you know, I would hope anyway have slightly better practices. But
absolutely. So tell us what got you through the various lockdowns, 1, 2, and 3, and if they were different in any way for you.
They were complete. All three were distinct. I can, you know, I could write a story about it. But so the first one was like, for me personally, was powerful medicine, because I had, before lockdown, I'd been really busy and I'd been away from home a lot. And so actually going into the first lockdown was like grounding. So being at home, being in my garden, seeing my partner, all those things, everything simplified, very powerful. And I was very present at that time. And actually, you know, despite there being a lot of challenges around all of us, and actually quite a lot going on in my family in terms of loss on a personal level, you know, the first lockdown enabled me to make some choices about what I'm focusing on, simplifying things. So my first lockdown was weirdly okay.
Yes.
Weirdly okay.
Yeah.
The second lockdown, which was over the summer, was probably okay because it was over the summer.
Yes. Yes.
And
yeah.
so, and actually we did a terrible thing and we got a dog. It's not
gorgeous
terrible,
dog.
it's amazing, it's the most amazing dog, but we're like, and she has changed our lives. She's
For the better.
For the better, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely for the better. But so the second phase was a bit mad because we're getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and trying to train the dog not to go to the toilet in the house. So didn't really have time to think. The last lockdown was hard. I'll be really honest. I've talked to you about this before. I found the last lockdown really, really, really hard. And I think, it's partly winter,
yes.
but it's also like, I think this is where you sort of really see how much you're able to resource yourself. And I felt like I resourced myself going into this last lockdown. And then it was just sort of like my energy to keep that going.
Yes.
Not
to
there.
Maintain it.
Yeah.
It was an effort.
Yeah, it was a real effort. And I just feel like I really struggled. We're here now, and so we're at this point where things are opening up. And we've been blessed with like this amazing weather as well, and for some reason that is bringing me back to myself. Like I've been doing a lot of reflection in my practice and my meditation around motivation and will, because I think for me that was what I struggled with in this lockdown. Motivation to do things, to get things done. My to-do list was getting longer and longer, and
I hear you.
To get stuff done was getting slower and slower. And and there was also part of me was like, it was a bigger mirror that was being put in front of me in terms of seeing those sort of possibly those deeper tendencies towards past experience or towards negativities that you might tend to at your worst points, if that makes sense. So I got to see, not at a full extent, but in a little window of like, this is where I could go if I don't come back into my routines and practice.
Yes. Yeah. If you don't come back to that foundation that you found, as you say, that glue. If we go right back to the beginning when you're talking about the practice, how you felt in Kenya, or your teacher training, beg your pardon, it was a teacher training that pulled you back in, and that stuck in my brain when you said about the glue. It was like that brought you back, otherwise you probably could have gone a different path.
Definitely. I've had those moments in this lockdown of like, don't know about you, where I've really questioned everything. I've had everything. And sort of trying to see whether am I really questioning everything, or am I just questioning it because I'm in a cycle?
Yes. Yeah. Mine was the motivation, not the questioning, because I think I had that whole this yoga shift out of the HR. But anyway, enough about me. Thank you for sharing the lockdown, because when I started this, it was just the first lockdown. It was like lockdown 1. How do you get through lockdown? It's like time's moved on. I'm now like, how were all 3? So it just shows you how time is running and passing, as we say in the Caribbean.
I should also say, I mean, one thing for me that was really clarifying about lockdown is, and this time that we've been in, COVID, BLM. I mean, I've changed a lot of things about what I'm doing, and it's just starting to come together. But essentially, I'm putting 100% of or like I would say 90% of my time into work that is centered around racial justice. And that was, you know, when you were speaking about that sort of clarity, like I absolutely had that clarity in the first lockdown. I'm not rolling back on that. I'm really not.
Good. Thank you. It's needed, as you say. It's so needed. So if you cast your mind back to, it's nearly a year now, George Floyd's killing, and then the diversifying of your social media feed. Do you remember, and may he rest in peace, George Floyd, do you remember getting A, additional followers, and B, any direct contacts from studios where they were trying to diversify?
So I don't know if I don't think I've got any direct followers, probably because I was one of the people that was deliberately not trying to have the conversation on social media.
Right.
Partly because, you know, there was, I think, you know, if you remember the first time, it was suddenly like there was a massive outpouring, and, you know, some people were having a very sophisticated conversation, and then there were a lot of people just expressing that, you know, that they hadn't understood that racism still existed.
Yeah.
So, you know, for me, when George Floyd's, you know, killing came to light, it was a point of deep reflection. So for me, it was a time to get with myself and really reflect on where am I located in this conversation, not even in the conversation, actually in the action, and recognizing actually, you know, it was a small part of what I was doing, but it was not a big part of what I was doing. So thinking about restorative justice, thinking about reparations, thinking about, you know, how do we empower our communities, and it was a big wake up call. I mean, I grew up in the UK, and as a child in the late 80s, early 90s, and I definitely personally experienced some racial abuse, not huge amounts, not to the extent that I have had other friends experience that. And by living and working overseas for so long, in a way, like I hadn't seen the trajectory of what was happening in the UK or not happening in the UK, or, you know, around the world. And so it was a sort of massive wake up call to me to sort of think about the fact that I was working in the space of social justice, and yet racial justice wasn't at the heart of that, even though it was something that I cared about. And so, you know, there was a big process of reflection and thinking about how do I want to orient my support and service into this agenda. So that was really where I was at. In terms of like, did I get approached by teachers and studios? Yeah, for sure. And in different ways. You know, I had some people that were very quickly supportive. Supportive of wanting to have a deeper conversation. I wasn't ready to just sort of jump in and be like, right, I'm going to be your ambassador, I'm going to do this with you, I'm going to do that with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I, you know, I feel like there have been a couple of spaces that I've been, and people I've been in long-term conversation with, where I now feel, you know, almost a year on, I feel like, okay, I'm ready to do something with you now. And I had a few people that, you know, just really triggered me, and I was sort of like, you know, you're not ready to have this conversation. There's a lot of work you need to do, and you're telling me that you get it, and you're not getting it. And that was difficult. And so, you know, so that at that time, what I said earlier about being in conversation where people were sort of pretending that there weren't certain types of people or teachers in spaces, you know, for me, that was just outrageous that anyone would say that. So Yeah, so for me it was like I had to choose. I centered myself, and you know this because you were in one of those with me, myself very quickly in BIPOC spaces. That
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, that
Yeah.
for me was very restorative. That gave a place of power to act.
Mm.
With some of my friends and teachers in Bristol, we were able to have some conversations with studios and just more broadly about our views of what was happening within. Bristol is one of those really cool places. I love Bristol. It's all like very right on, but then you sort of look under the skin of it and it doesn't feel very inclusive at all.
Mm.
And so it was really having uh, that strength to sit within, to sit with and be in solidarity with was more powerful for me than trying to sort of embark on sort of a one man or one person show with several of the teachers and studios that approached me. Yeah, that's kind of how I dealt with it for myself.
Yeah, no, I totally respect that, because it was a lot. So it's really great to hear how you processed it, because yeah, thank you for sharing that. So now we move on to the part where you get to tell us what's happening for the rest of the year. So we're in middle of April.
Joking.
What did you say?
I just said I have no idea.
You have no idea? That's fine. But I know you've got something to tell us.
I do have some things. I mean, there's a few things on the boil.
2021, share, promote away what you got coming up. What do you want us to know?
Okay, so there's a few little bits coming up. So one lovely small little bit is so with some wonderful teachers and friends, we in Bristol, we've started to kind of develop this sort of Bristol and Southwest teachers collective for BIPOC teachers. So if you're out there in the region and you're looking for friends and allies, feel free to connect with me, and we'd love to have you in the space. So this is it's a new space that we've been growing over the last sort of 6 to 8 months, and I can tell you more individually. The other thing that I'm really excited about is I've got a new class coming into the space.
Yay! Where? Tell us.
This is called the breathing room, and actually this is one of the ones that in about May-June time, this was a seed that was developing in my mind, and I really wanted to sit with it. And so the idea was to create a space for BIPOC folks to to sort of just practice in with one another in a very simple way. So it's going to be a very gentle class, focusing on how we can use the breath to support our own nourishment, our own healing, to support each other as well. We'll be drawing on many of the practices from yoga, but also from other traditions like Qigong, and also from sort of somatic practices as well. And it's going to be a bit of a mashup, but it is going to be a space of breathing. Breathe, just to breathe, to be in rest, to be in gentle movement. And I'll be starting that on Thursdays at 6:30 with MoreYoga on their online live space. And I should say, so it's a BIPOC only space, and all the proceeds, so all the money raised from that will go to Black Minds Matter, which is an amazing new national mental health organisation set up in the UK. So yeah.
Amazing. Well done. Very exciting. I'm glad that that's come together for you, especially when, as you say, you've had the seed planted for a while. And it's great. So this Thursday, 6:30, MoreYoga.
Yeah, online. You can find it on the space. I'll put the link. I'm putting some posts out tomorrow. The posts are already.
Yeah, you were already on the newsletter. It went out yesterday to all the members. So yeah, you're already there.
Yay.
Yeah, amazing. But yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to share? I mean, don't get me wrong, they're both amazing, what you have to share, but if you have anything else, what are your regular classes, your
My
week?
regular classes, so at the moment, I teach online on Monday nights and Wednesday nights, and you can find that on my Instagram page.
What is your Instagram?
It's dill@dill.yoga, and you can DM me. I love to chat to people, so feel free to DM me. And so Monday nights is flow and meditation. Wednesday nights is Hatha essentials. So we break things down. And I get a bit technical. I don't get into technical, but I like, we look at how things move, and we spend time moving in one
Well,
thing.
something like a workshop.
It's a bit mini workshop-y, but it's,
what time is that?
That's 6:30 to 7:30. Are you going to come?
Might actually, yeah, because I don't teach till 8, so yeah, I might one week. Yeah, I like breaking things down. Yeah.
It's just like, especially with lockdown, it's like that glue and that thigh is so tense. You can't just flow through it. You've got to stay there and do some.
Yes, exactly. Amazing.
And then on Sundays, Sundays at 8:00 for the summer is Route to Rest, which is one of my favorite classes. It's new, and it was kind of inspired by you. You're one of the people that inspired me to think about restorative. Yeah.
Wow.
To think about restorative not just as something that I do, but actually as something that I share. And so
amazing.
It's a very much a rest-based class, and we do some movement, and we use all the props, but it's all very, very centered around just the soothing of the nervous system, just the whole regulation of the nervous system.
Wonderful.
That's a really nice one as well.
I like that the title, Route to Rest. I love that.
Yeah, well, we need to. If we're not grounded, we're not going to be.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So before I open the floor to see if there are any questions, is there any final thoughts, anything you want to go back over, anything you forgot to share?
I don't think so.
That's been great. Really, really insightful. Awesome. Thank you.
And thank you so much for inviting me, Yvonne. I love chatting. When you said like we're going to just have a chat, I was like very excited about that.
Yeah, love to chat. Okay, so we do have someone live with us. Welcome. You've been there the whole time, so it's really great. You're welcome to come off mute and ask a question if you'd like. Equally, you can type it in the chat box and I will read it out to Dill. Or not, it's absolutely fine. And also, if you're watching this on Catch Up, if you have any questions, you can type it into the comments box on YouTube, and it does come through to us. So Jill will get the message, or if she says DM her, she likes to chat. So you'll get your answer to any questions you have. So no pressure if there's not any live questions.
No specific questions. I just want to say thank you to you both. It's been wonderful. I feel incredibly privileged to have just been witness and listening to this wonderful conversation. So thank you both very much.
Oh, thank you very much indeed. Thank you for sharing. Or thank you for sharing your feedback. That means a lot. Thank you. So thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. As I say, if you do have any questions, pop them onto the comments box and Dill will come back to you. This runs every fortnight, so 3rd of May, 2 weeks, which is actually bank holiday. 2 weeks' time, it is Valerie Tay, who we both know from another BIPOC group. So, looking forward to hearing Valerie's story. And also, if you are a yoga teacher of colour and you would like to host, you got an idea for space, like, you heard Dill talking about seed that she had since last summer. If you've got any ideas, please do contact either me directly or on the MoreYoga Instagram, because this series is coming to an end in August, but MoreYoga are absolutely still wanting to hold the space to amplify melanated voices. So if you've got any ideas, get in touch. So yeah, that's it for tonight. Thank you so much, or today, whatever time you're watching. Be back on the 3rd of May. And once again, I want to thank Dil for sharing your beautiful journey with us. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me. It's
You're very, very welcome. Take care.
You too.
See you all next time. Bye-bye.